Picture a dirt road in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the kind of road where the only sounds are horse hooves on gravel and the occasional creak of a wooden buggy wheel. You are standing at the edge of an Amish farm, and you are very clearly not from around here. Not just because you drove in on a car, not just because you are wearing jeans and sneakers, but because the color of your skin tells a story that most people assume the Amish have never had to reckon with. An older man in a dark coat and a straw hat walks toward you from the barn. His beard is long and gray, no mustache, just like every married Amish man you have ever seen in a photograph. He stops about 3 feet away. You extend your hand. What nobody knew, standing on that quiet gravel road, was that this handshake had roots older than the United States itself, older than the Constitution, older than the Declaration of Independence. And the story behind it is one that almost nobody outside of Amish country has ever been told. He took your hand, and he shook it. Now you might be thinking, okay, it is a handshake. What is the big deal? But if you knew what most people assume about the Amish, you would understand why this moment stopped you cold. The internet is full of takes on these people, that they are stuck in the past, that they are afraid of outsiders, that they want nothing to do with anyone who does not look, talk, and pray exactly like them. And if you happen to be Black, or Latino, or Asian, or anything other than white and European, well, good luck getting more than a sideways glance. Those assumptions are mostly wrong. And proving that is going to take us from a dirt road in Pennsylvania all the way back to 1688. So stay with me. If you had asked anyone in Lancaster County about the Amish back in 1990, they would have told you they were a small, quiet community of farmers who kept to themselves, maybe 20 or 30,000 people total. Interesting, sure, but a relic, a living museum. They had no idea. Today, the Amish population in North America has reached 410,955 people, according to the Young Center for Anabaptist and Pietist Studies at Elizabethtown College. They live in 32 states and 3 Canadian provinces, spread across more than 3,100 church districts, and their population doubles roughly every 20 years. That is not a relic. That is one of the fastest growing religious communities in the Western Hemisphere. But here is what makes that growth truly unusual. The Amish do not recruit. They do not knock on your door. They do not run ads. They do not have a website trying to convert you. According to senior scholar Stephen Nolt at Elizabethtown College, there are only a few dozen total converts on record in all of Amish history. All of that growth comes from 2 things: large families, often 5 or more children per household, and a retention rate of 85 to 90% after Rumspringa, the period where Amish teenagers are allowed to experience the outside world before deciding whether to commit to the faith through adult baptism. I mean, think about that for a second. 9 out of 10 Amish kids see what the rest of us have: the phones, the cars, the internet, the freedom, and they choose to go back. Professor Richard Stavik at Messiah University, who studied Amish communities for over 40 years, told CNN that most Amish teenagers never actually leave during Rumspringa. The wild party narrative is a pop culture distortion. For most of them, it is just a few years of slightly relaxed rules before they choose the life their parents chose. So that is who the Amish are today. A fast-growing, deeply committed community with roots stretching back over 500 years to the Swiss-German Anabaptist movement in Europe. Their ancestors were burned at the stake, drowned in rivers, and imprisoned for their beliefs. They wrote hymns about it. The Ausbund, the oldest hymnal still in continuous use anywhere in the world, contains songs composed by Anabaptist prisoners in a dungeon in Passau, Germany, in the 1530s. These people carry the memory of persecution in their DNA, and that is not a metaphor. Every Amish household owns a copy of The Martyr's Mirror, a massive book first published in Dutch in 1660, running over 1,500 pages in the German edition that most Amish families use today. Children grow up reading stories of their own ancestors being drowned in the Limmat River in Zurich, burned alive in the Netherlands, and having their tongues clamped with iron screws so they could not testify to their faith on the way to execution. When an Amish parent teaches their child about faith, It starts with the people who died for it. This decision seemed small at the time. It wasn't. Because that same memory of being outsiders, of being hunted, of being the ones society wanted to erase, is the exact thing that shaped how they would treat other outsiders centuries later, including the one standing on that dirt road with an outstretched hand. Tony Brown at Heston College understood this intuitively. He tours with a program called Common Threads that explicitly links the Anabaptist martyr stories with the history of African American racial suffering. Two peoples, separated by an ocean and centuries, who both know what it feels like when the world decides you do not belong. Now, to understand why that handshake matters so much, you need to hear about a document that almost nobody talks about. On April 18, 1688, in a small settlement called Germantown, just outside of Philadelphia, 4 men sat down and wrote a petition. Their names were Francis Daniel Pastorius, Garrett Hendricks, Derek Opden Greff, and Abraham Opden Greff. Pastorius was a scholar from Franconia in southern Germany. The other 3 were German-Dutch immigrants from the town of Krefeld. All 4 came from Mennonite and Quaker backgrounds, the same Anabaptist tradition that would later give birth to the Amish. What they wrote that day in Germantown became the first public protest against slavery by any religious body in the English colonies of North America. The National Park Service recognizes it as one of the first written declarations of universal human rights in the Americas. The petition asked one simple question: is there any that would be done or handled at this manner, to be sold or made a slave for all the time of his life? They were invoking the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And they declared that every human being, regardless of belief, color, or ethnicity, has rights that should not be violated. And here is the detail that everyone missed at the time. These 4 men were not accustomed to slavery. In their homeland, according to historians at blackpast.org, only convicted criminals were subjected to forced labor. When they arrived in Pennsylvania and saw African people being bought and sold like livestock, they were genuinely horrified. The petition was submitted to the local Germantown Quaker meeting. It was then passed up to the Philadelphia Quarterly meeting, and then to the yearly meeting in Burlington, New Jersey. At every level, it was read, discussed, and tabled. Nobody wanted to deal with it. The document sat in obscurity for over a century. But those words never disappeared. They resurfaced again and again in later abolitionist arguments, and the original handwritten petition was rediscovered in 2005 in a vault at the Arch Street Meeting House in Philadelphia. Today, it is preserved in the Quaker and Special Collections at Haverford College. Now, I want to be honest about something here, because this story deserves honesty. The Amish as a distinct denomination did not technically exist yet in 1688. Jacob Amon's break from the Mennonites happened between 1693 and 1697. So those 4 men in Germantown were Mennonites, not Amish. But the Amish share the same Anabaptist ancestry, the same theological lineage, and the same core beliefs. And historians James Lehman and Stephen Nolt have written that the Mennonite and Amish opposition to slavery was, in their words, probably more consistent than that of the famed Quakers. And the timing of what happened next? Almost too perfect. Because while the Amish never owned slaves in significant numbers, they also were not heroes of the Underground Railroad. Unlike their Quaker neighbors, who had a long tradition of civic activism, the Amish believed that faithfulness meant withdrawing from the political world. A blogger of Amish Mennonite descent put it honestly. While the Amish Mennonites did not own slaves, there is, with one small exception, no record that any of them was involved with the Underground Railroad either. That tension between moral conviction and political withdrawal, between believing slavery is wrong and refusing to fight a war to end it, is the most fascinating contradiction in Amish history. Lehman and Nolt framed it as a question that haunted the entire community. How could they oppose both slavery and the war to end it? How could they remain outside the conflict without entering the American mainstream? If you are wondering how that tension played out, so is everyone else. Because it played out in families, literally. In 1750, 2 Swiss German brothers arrived in Philadelphia. Their names were Jacob and John Mast. Jacob would go on to become the first Amish bishop ordained in the United States, leading the Amish communities of Berks and Chester counties in Pennsylvania. His brother John, at the age of 20, left the Amish faith, moved to North Carolina, and his descendants became slaveholders. John's grandson, Reuben Mast, fathered a child with an enslaved girl. Let that land for a moment. Two brothers, same boat, same parents, same faith. One became the most important Amish leader in early America. The other's descendants enslaved human beings. The story might have ended there, lost in the fog of history, if not for two professors at Heston College in Heston, Kansas. Dr. Sharon Cranford, an African-American Baptist, and Dr. Dwight Roth, a white Mennonite Episcopalian from Berks County, Pennsylvania, were colleagues and friends. They worked in the same building, ate lunch together, taught side by side for years. Through genealogical research, they discovered something that stunned them both. They were descended from the same Mast brothers, Jacob and John, the bishop and the slaveholder. Their family lines had split 250 years earlier along the fault line of faith and slavery, and they had found each other again in a small Kansas college without knowing it. Think about the odds of that. A black woman and a white man, born into completely different worlds, both end up teaching at the same tiny Mennonite college in central Kansas. And they share an ancestor. One ancestor chose the church, the other chose the plantation, and 250 years later, their descendants are sharing coffee in a faculty lounge, completely unaware of the blood they share. They wrote a book about it, Kinship Concealed, published in 2013 and reprinted by Masthof Press in 2018. And that book is what set the next part of this story in motion. If the Mast brothers' story stopped there, this would be a very different video. But it didn't stop, because Kinship Concealed caught the attention of a man named Tony Brown. Tony Brown is an African-American Mennonite, a sociology instructor, and an internationally recognized baritone at Heston College. He also knew a greeting in Pennsylvania Dutch. On a train headed to Albuquerque, Brown encountered an Amish man named Levi Zook from New Holland, Pennsylvania. And when Brown greeted Zook in Pennsylvania Dutch, Zook stopped in his tracks. An African-American man greeting him in the language of the Amish, on a train in the middle of the country. That simple greeting exhausted the extent of Brown's Pennsylvania Dutch, but it was enough. According to Anabaptist World, which reported on the encounter in February 2015, the two men spent the rest of the trip talking in English. Brown told Zook about Kinship Concealed. Zook contacted the authors and bought the book. And then, in October 2014, Tony Brown received an invitation that almost never happens. Levi Zook's bishop invited Brown to his home in Pennsylvania to share the story of African-American slave history with members of the Amish congregation. About 30 Amish men and women gathered in the bishop's living room in Lancaster County. There was no electricity, no microphone, no projector. Just kerosene lamps, wooden chairs, and a room full of people who had never heard anything like what was about to happen. Brown, the baritone, sang African-American spirituals for them. Songs that were born in cotton fields and slave quarters, songs about suffering and deliverance and a God who does not forget. And then the Amish sang back, hymns in Low German from the same Ausbund that their ancestors wrote in that Passau dungeon nearly 500 years ago. Two musical traditions that had never been in the same room before, both rooted in the same thing, the experience of being persecuted for who you are. Brown later said he was honored to be invited to share African slave history in a culture that does not generally open itself to the outside. He said that whenever he can get into a world not his own and make a profound connection, he feels blessed. Zook's response after that evening was simple. It was a night everyone would remember. And no, I am not making that up. This is a documented, published account from Anabaptist World, the leading publication covering Anabaptist communities in North America. So why does this kind of connection happen? Why did Zook shake Brown's hand on that train? Why did a bishop open his living room to a black man singing spirituals? The answer comes down to one German word that most people have never heard. Gelassenheit, pronounced Gelassenheit. It means yielding, letting be, submission to the will of God and to others. According to the Young Center at Elizabethtown College, Gelassenheit carries many meanings. Self-surrender, contentment, a calm spirit, and most importantly, It is the opposite of bold individualism that promotes self-interest at every turn. This is the operating system of Amish life. It is rooted in the prayer of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Not my will, but thine be done. It shapes how they dress, how they speak, how they do business, and how they treat the stranger standing at the edge of their farm. If you have ever met an Amish person and noticed that they pause before answering your question, that pause is Gelassenheit. They are not being slow, they are being deliberate. They are yielding. Author Karen Anna Vogel, who has spent years among the Amish, described Gelassenheit as putting others first, the golden rule seen in Technicolor. Now, if you are finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I cover stories like this every week, the kind of hidden history and cross-cultural encounters that nobody else is talking about. By 2026, the Amish are no longer just farmers behind white fences. Only about 1/3 of Amish families own farms today, down from roughly 90% historically, because the population has outgrown the available farmland. The rest run businesses. And those businesses have a reported 95% 5-year success rate, far above the national average of around 50%, tracked by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the Amish are spreading. Pennsylvania still holds the largest share with roughly 95,000 people. Ohio is close behind at around 86,000. Indiana has about 67,000. But the real surprise is New York, which has quadrupled its Amish population since the year 2000, going from about 4,500 to over 21,000 people, according to Anabaptist World. New settlements are popping up in states you would never expect: Kentucky, Missouri, Minnesota, even Montana. About 61% of all Amish in North America still live in just 3 states: Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Indiana. But the other 39% are scattered across 29 additional states. Wherever there is affordable farmland and room to grow, the Amish follow. Amish-made furniture has become a significant force in the domestic market, with Ohio's Amish furniture cluster alone consuming roughly 11% of the state's total hardwood lumber output, according to the U.S. Forest Service. Amish market stands operate in downtown Philadelphia, at the famous Reading Terminal Market in Baltimore, and in Washington, D.C., serving some of the most diverse customer bases in the country. According to Amish America, which has documented Amish business culture for nearly 2 decades, non-Amish customers comprise most of their clientele. Every single day, Amish vendors interact with people of every race, every background, every walk of life. If you have ever bought handmade furniture, baked goods, or fresh produce at a market in the Mid-Atlantic, there is a solid chance an Amish person made it or sold it to you. And here is where the real stories live. An African-American registered nurse shared on Quora that she took care of an Amish woman in the hospital and befriended her and her family. That led to the family inviting her out to see the farm. "They take us on carriage rides," she wrote. "They cook for us. They take us to visit their schoolhouse and spend time with the animals. They even taught us a little bit of German." She called them very welcoming and gentle people. In the Holmes County, Ohio settlement, the second largest Amish community in the country, authors Charles Hurst and David McConnell documented in their book An Amish Paradox the case of an Amish bishop's sister and her husband who adopted 4 biracial children. Their reason was straightforward. They just wanted children to lavish love on. Commenters on Amish America have reported seeing Black Amish individuals in York County and Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, wearing old order dress, using push scooters, and living within Amish districts. One antique store owner in southern York County wrote that he regularly sees a Black Amish man on the main road, dressed in full Amish clothing, often barefoot, riding a foot-powered scooter. Now, you might have seen articles online claiming that entire Black Amish communities exist across the United States, with their own gospel music traditions and Amish soul food recipes. That would be an incredible story. It would also be completely false. Eric Wessner, who runs Amish America and has visited over 70 Amish communities since 2004, has systematically debunked these claims. He wrote bluntly that there is no such thing as a Black Amish community or a Black Amish village. Those articles, which show up on sites like Amish Rules and Church My Way, appear to be AI-generated or SEO content designed to attract clicks. One commenter on Wessner's debunking post nailed it. Those excerpts about Black Amish communities sound like they were written by a bot. What is real, and what is actually more interesting than the myth, is the African American Mennonite Association, founded in 1982, and roughly 50 African American or integrated Mennonite congregations across the United States. The Mennonite tradition, which is the Amish's closest theological cousin, has done far more formal work on racial integration than the Amish have. And that difference matters. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything about the gap between the Amish and the Mennonites on race. The Amish are not one group. They are a spectrum, and the range is wider than you think. The Swartzentruber Amish, the most conservative group, may not even ride in cars owned by non-Amish people except in emergencies. They have no indoor plumbing, no reflectors on their buggies, and virtually zero interaction with outsiders beyond what is absolutely necessary. The Old Order Amish, the group most people picture when they hear the word Amish, use horse and buggy transportation, worship in homes, speak Pennsylvania Dutch, and are welcoming to visitors without being evangelistic. Their retention rate after Rumspringa runs between 80 and 90%. The New Order Amish, which emerged in the 1960s in Lancaster County and Holmes County, permit some home electricity, telephones, and even air travel. They have a more evangelical bent and are significantly more open to outsiders. And the Beachy Amish, named after Bishop Moses Beachy, who broke from the Old Order in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, in 1927, drive cars, use electricity, hold services in meeting houses, and run active mission programs. Most Beachy churches today more closely resemble conservative Mennonites than Old Order Amish. So when someone asks whether the Amish are racist or welcoming, the answer depends entirely on which Amish community you are talking about, which district, which family, which individual. In comment threads moderated by Eric Wesner, who has visited over 70 Amish communities in 17 states since 2004, readers have described communities that range from deeply welcoming to, honestly, actively prejudiced. One reader described a Troyer affiliation group as very prejudiced against Black and biracial people. Another told the story of a Black man sent to York County because the Lancaster Amish would not accept his bid for membership, and the Mennonite side of the family was not immune either. The Virginia Mennonite Conference maintained formal segregation policies as late as the 1940s, restricting interracial participation in baptism, foot washing, communion, and the Holy Kiss. Mennonite pastor Rondo Horton, the first African-American ordained minister in the Mennonite Brethren Church, challenged his white colleagues at race relations conclaves in 1959 and 1964, telling them that Mennonites should start working with the white people in the South and teach them that segregation is wrong. This is the complicated, messy, human truth. The same tradition that produced the 1688 Germantown Petition also produced communities that struggled with the very thing their ancestors protested against. And that tension is not resolved, it is ongoing. But the conversion question is where you see the real picture clearly. The Amish rule on marriage is universal and applies to everyone, regardless of race. To be married in an Amish church, both people must be baptized members. That is a rule that holds across all Amish communities, according to Amish America. It means learning Pennsylvania Dutch. It means submitting to the Ordnung, the unwritten community rules that govern everything from the color of your buggy to the width of your hat brim. It means giving up your car, your phone, your electricity. It means an adult baptism that is treated as a lifelong, irrevocable vow. Any outsider faces those same barriers: white, Black, Latino, Asian. The cultural threshold is enormous, regardless of who you are. That is the honest, non-romantic truth. And that brings us back to the handshake. Remember that dirt road in Lancaster County? The straw hat, the long gray beard, the outstretched hand? That handshake did not mean you were accepted into his community. That would take years of language learning, baptism classes, and a commitment to live without almost everything the modern world considers essential. It meant something different. It meant you were accepted as a guest, as a stranger, as a person whose faith asked him to welcome you. The Amish have a word for people outside their community. They call us English. It does not matter if you are Black, Asian, or Hispanic. If you are not Amish, you are English. There is something weirdly equalizing about that. In the eyes of the man in the straw hat, every outsider starts from the same place. You are all equally foreign, and you are all equally worthy of a handshake. And in a country where people cannot agree on anything, where we sort ourselves into tribes, algorithms, and echo chambers, where a stranger is more likely to get a suspicious stare than an open hand, that gesture carries weight. Not because the Amish are perfect. They are not. Not because they have solved racism. They have not. But because 4 German farmers in Germantown, Pennsylvania, in 1688, wrote down the golden rule on a piece of paper and asked their neighbors to actually live by it. They failed to end slavery that day. The petition was tabled and forgotten for over a century, but the ideas they wrote down never died. And 338 years later, on a quiet dirt road in Pennsylvania, a man in a straw hat with a long gray beard looked at someone who did not look like him, did not talk like him, and did not pray like him. He decided those 4 farmers in 1688 were right. He shook your hand, and he meant it. If this story surprised you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to see more stories about the hidden connections between communities that most people never think about, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.